We booked the retreat because we were tired. Not tired like we needed sleep, but the other kind. The kind of tired that settles behind your ribs, deep in the space where your body stores things you never quite say aloud. We weren't broken. We weren't even unhappy. But we were stretched thin, like fabric left out in the sun too long, faded in places we hadn't noticed until we saw how the light passed right through. The retreat was called The Quiet Above the Lake, and everything about it seemed designed to be felt but not questioned. The website had no location, no country, just a grid of soft, silent photographs. Pale wooden decks suspended over still water, rooms carved into stone, guests with their backs to the camera, gazing toward mist that never cleared. It promised total silence, voluntary solitude, and recovery through removal. And something about that sounded less like a sales pitch and more like an invitation to vanish. Once we passed the final town, if it even counted as a town, we didn't see another vehicle. The road narrowed until it became a path, and the path eventually gave way to a dock where a glass-bottomed boat waited in silence. The lake beneath us was too still for any living body of water, like it had been poured into place and told not to move. We crossed in silence, not because anyone told us to, but because it felt wrong to disturb whatever this was. The hike that followed led us up a narrow trail flanked by black pine trees that stood in such perfectly spaced rows it looked more like landscaping than nature. There were no animals, no birds, not even wind. When we arrived, no one greeted us. Not at first. We stood there for several minutes, unsure if we'd come to the right place, until a woman emerged soundlessly from a side path and handed us warm towels with both hands, bowing slightly before walking away without a word. The others followed with slow, intentional movements, like dancers rehearsing a routine too precise for conversation. We were led to our rooms. No doors slammed, no locks clicked, just a gentle pressure on the handle and the sound of fabric shifting as bedsheets settled. The rooms were beautiful in a way that felt suspicious, every surface soft to the eye, every line symmetrical, every object placed with a kind of clinical serenity. There were no televisions, no radios, not even a ticking clock. That first night, I lay in bed and listened to nothing. No bugs, no breeze, just the sound of blood in my ears and the quiet sensation that I was being listened to in return. On the second day, we were given a small pamphlet, not a welcome packet, but more like a notice. No speech was permitted within the boundaries of the retreat. Communication, it said, was a form of noise. True silence, the paper read in a soft serif font, is a kindness most people have never survived long enough to deserve. Anna laughed when she read it, just once, a sharp exhale through her nose. It echoed down the hallway for several seconds, longer than it should have. She didn't laugh again. On the third morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. Her bed was made, her towel was dry, and her shoes were gone. When I asked one of the staff, half whispering, unsure if I was allowed to speak at all, she held up a small placard she seemed to keep tucked in her sleeve, as though expecting this moment. When one becomes quiet enough to hear the lake, they do not return to the noise. That was the only answer I got. That day, I noticed something about the lake. It never reflected the sky. Clouds, trees, buildings, but never the sun, never stars. At night, it looked like a flat, lightless pit surrounded by perfection. You could see your own body on its surface, but not the sky above you, no matter how clear it was. On the fourth evening, I tried to leave. I walked back to the dock just to look, just to make sure the boat was still there. It wasn't. In its place was a single wooden bench. Sitting on it was a pale bowl of water, perfectly still, with a note placed beneath it. "You're not ready to return. You're not yet quiet." I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake and listened for anything: wind, breath, a cough from another room, but there was nothing, not even from myself. The silence had become physical, a pressure behind my teeth, like a sound waiting to be let out. By the end of the week, 4 more guests had gone. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just quietly. Their beds made, their windows open, their presence erased without disruption. The remaining guests began to change. They moved more slowly, as if the air had thickened. Their eyes lingered on the lake too long. Some of them began to smile, not with joy, but with relief. Relief that they could no longer hear the noise. I still hear it. I still think in words. I still crave the sound of conversation, of laughter, of music, even if I no longer remember the lyrics. But I know what's waiting at the bottom of the lake. I've felt it calling.